from Washington, D.C. It is great to be back on a historic night. Despite the constant noise from the naysayers, another promise kept. The president striking a stunning trade deal with Mexico. In moments, we speak exclusively to White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow and the Mexican foreign minister who helped make it happen. And the Democrats continue to indulge in impeachment fantasy. Of course they do. But do they do so at their own expense, their own peril? Some shocking evidence ahead. Plus, the death of an American hero being used as a resistance prop? We'll explain. And the Catholic Church at a crossroads, a former Vatican ambassador to the U.S. making explosive claims that Pope Francis knowingly protected a sexual predator. Bishops are now taking sides. A special Monday appearance by Raymond Arroyo later in the hour. But first, Trump's trade triumph. That's the focus of tonight's angle. As the media fixate on sideshows that'll have zero impact on American lives, things like the Manafort verdict or Stormy Daniels' latest squall, or even recently the issue with the flag going up or down, half-mast, full-mast, Trump is methodically fulfilling his campaign promises. And today, he delivered on a huge one, announcing a new trade deal between Mexico and the United States. Now, remember what he said during the campaign.
I'm going to tell our NAFTA partners that I intend to immediately renegotiate the terms of that agreement to get a better deal by a lot, not just a little, by a lot for our workers. A Trump administration will end that war by getting a fair deal for the American people and the American worker. The era of economic surrender will finally be over.
And boy, is it. Today's agreement makes critical changes to U.S.-Mexico trade. Among them, 75% of auto parts will be produced in North America. That's up from 62.5%, any vehicle coming into the United States. And 40 to 45% of auto parts will be made by workers earning at least $16 an hour. Good stuff. The deal also strengthens intellectual property and financial services trade protections, also improves the trade of digital products. From the start, though, there were those who said it couldn't be done. Trump can't do it. It's all a bunch of bluster. And when Trump raised the ante, threatening to impose new tough tariffs on Mexico and Canada, the reaction was apocalyptic.
We're in the nascent stages of a full-scale trade war, and the president simply seems to want to escalate.
It's not just my state that is involved here, it's our nation. It has significant consequences for us here at home, not only just economically, but politically.
If you alienate Mexico over the wall and over NAFTA, what you end up doing is electing this summer a much more nationalistic, much more radical Mexican president who will not cooperate.
Well, it turns out old Almo is on board with what they discussed. Now, just like the moving of the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, the renegotiation of the trade deal with South Korea, and Trump standing up to China, the so-called experts have consistently gotten it wrong, underestimating Trump. You see, the president has his own team of real experts. These are people from outside the old globalist trade establishment who were responsible, frankly, for those complicated multilateral deals that hurt the American worker and destroyed American industries. From the start, members of Trump's team, like Jared Kushner and U.S. Trade Rep Bob Lighthizer, were committed to leveling the playing field and creating reciprocity between nations. That means fair deals that will allow all parties to prosper. Isn't that what we want? And the bilateral deals, country to country, may indeed end up being the most enforceable and the most beneficial for all. Both the current and the soon-to-be Mexican presidents see the wisdom of bilateral arrangements with the United States. Now, they'd like Canada to be part of it, but if not, they're not going to sabotage it. This is what Trump touted today.
They used to call it NAFTA. We're going to call it the United States-Mexico Trade Agreement. We'll get rid of the name NAFTA. It has a bad connotation because the United States was hurt very badly by NAFTA for many years. And now it's a really good deal for both countries. And we look very much forward to it.
Now it's up to Canada, which is sending a rep to Washington tomorrow to either sign on to the Mexico deal, or I guess try to fashion its own bilateral deal with the United States down the road.
We will see whether or not we decide to put up Canada or just do a separate deal with Canada if they want to make the deal. The simplest deal is more or less already made.
Now, in the meantime, Trump is moving forward. And as I said, why should Mexico and the United States allow their trade relationship to be held hostage to domestic politics in Canada? And of course, Trudeau's stonewalling. The strides made after a year of negotiations are really impressive. And any objective observer, if there is any of those left, would admit that tonight. And by the way, this is going to set the benchmark for any future deals in this hemisphere. Now, if the reaction of the stock market is any indication, which surged in reaction to today's news, Congress should fast-track the U.S.-Mexican trade agreement and keep the Trump economy humming. And that's the angle. Joining us now with reaction is Luis Videgaray. He's the Secretary of Foreign Affairs for Mexico. It is great to have you on. Thanks so much for joining us. Es un placer, señor.
Es un placer.
Es un placer. Let's talk about what happened today. How significant is this in the relationship between Mexico and the United States?
It's really significant. I think it's a breakthrough, and it shows that two countries can actually get together and do a good deal for both of them that is reciprocal, that is fair, and will allow growth on both sides. It's good for Mexican workers, it's good for the American worker. I think this is a brilliant deal.
This Washington Post columnist, Catherine Rampell, was on CNN today for quite a while, and she discussed what this meant and what about Canada. Let's watch.
Trump really needs a win, right? He needs a win before the midterms. He wants to be able to say that he has renegotiated NAFTA. In that case, he needs Canada on board. You had this very short window to get Canada on board. Otherwise, the whole deal could fall apart on the Mexico side.
What about that? The whole deal could fall apart on your side if Canada, when they come tomorrow, we got the economic minister coming tomorrow, it's all over?
Let me tell you how we've explained this to the Mexican people. For almost 2 years, we've had great uncertainty on whether we would still have access to the U.S. market through a trade agreement. And that's been the debate, because losing access to the U.S. market would be significant for the Mexican economy. What happened today is significant because we are guaranteeing that we'll have a trade agreement with the U.S. We love Canada, and we want to have Canada as part of the deal. But in case that for whatever reason, Canada is not able to join, we'll still have a deal with the U.S. and we'll move on. And the next few days are going to be crucial for whether Canada is part of the deal. We are going to work 24/7 to enable the possibility of Canada being part of the deal. And as I repeat, we really have a strong relationship with Canada. We want them in. But if at the end of the day, for whatever reason, they're not able to be part of it, we'll still move on and have a very good deal with the U.S.
Jared Kushner, when he came in to the White House, a lot of people thought, it's just the president's son-in-law. What does he know? Why would he have any position of authority? How critical was he in your working relationship over the last couple of years, really, to get this done?
Jared has been absolutely instrumental. I would say that we would never arrive to this day without Jared's hard work, with his vision, and just his courage. We've been through some rough patches in this relationship. We've had our moments where things were almost falling apart. And at those very difficult times, Jared was there, holding up the relationship and enabling this moment to happen. So when we get to this point where we actually have a deal, and it's a very good deal, I think, for both sides, certainly Jared is a guy that should be at the top of the list of the people that make it happen.
Yeah, New York Times headline, January 24th, 2017, facing Trump, Mexicans think the unthinkable, leaving NAFTA. How much, how wrong, I would say, were many of the experts in what was possible between Mexico and Trump?
Well, I think a lot of people thought that this collision was unavoidable, that this was going to be a disaster. That actually, you know what, Laura? A lot of people thought that NAFTA would be over last year, early last year. and that there was no way to fix this relationship in a way that would be constructive to both sides. We proved them wrong. Through very disciplined, tenacious work, and with a vision to make.
And Bob Lighthizer, critical U.S. trade rep.
Yeah. You've
become very close to him. You guys are adversarial, yet you respect each other's priorities.
I have tremendous respect for Bob. He's a true expert. He's an honest guy. Really tough. It's really tough.
That's what he says about you.
It's really tough to deal with Bob, but he's phenomenal, and you know he's an honest guy to deal with.
Almost out of time, but Almo, new president, Mexico. A lot of people also predicted, and I was a little bit worried that when he came into power. He's coming to power at the end of the year. It's going to be tougher for the United States. How will that work out? Really quick.
We've been working like one team. AMLO has been sending representatives to this negotiation. They've been observers, but more than observers. They've been active participants, and I think they're part of the reason why we got to this day.
Your message to U.S. Congress: get this thing approved.
This is good not only for Mexico. This is great for America. This is great for Mexico. Yeah, it definitely should pass both in the U.S. Congress and the Mexican Congress.
Mr. Foreign Minister, thank you so much for being with us. Great job for your country. We really appreciate it. And just a short while ago, I spoke with the president's chief economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, for the White House's response and perspective. Larry, it's great to be with you.
Thank you,
have you here. Thanks
Wonderful.
so much.
Thank you.
Let's talk about what happened today. We just heard from Luis Videgaray, the Mexican foreign minister, of course, about how we got to this place where all of these naysayers said it wasn't possible. You couldn't strike a deal with Mexico. Trump had poisoned the relationship. Give us a little behind-the-scenes look.
Our side, their side, you're absolutely right. And then it kept coming together. Instead of moving apart, it came together. And every time it was a setback, it kept moving. Huge, huge credit to Jared Kushner and Bob Lighthizer. Honestly. I mean, Lighthizer was the team leader. Jared was great. POTUS kept giving a green light, you know.
Get it done. He wants results. He wants people in his administration who get results, correct?
Yes, President told me probably 2 months ago, he said, I am sick of this multilateral stuff, okay? He said, you go out there and tell folks that I want to do bilateral, much simpler, much more direct. And I did. And we took some heat from it, and it paid off. China not paying off. Mexico paid off. We'll see about Canada. We got the EU cooking also. That may be a big positive surprise. You know, you look around, all of a sudden, screaming at President Trump, his tactics and his aggressiveness and his plain speaking. Looks like it's paying off to me. Looks like it's paying off to me.
Yeah, the stock market, another near record high today, up 259 points.
This was a growthy deal. I call it growthier.
Are you using, there it is. Are you using growth as an adjective, Larry?
Growthier.
Is that something that came with the little heart issue you had? Now you have more heart for the economy.
It's a Kudlow word.
I've known Larry for 20 plus years. I can make a joke about heart.
I got it into an op-ed in the Washington Post.
Okay, good.
So
it's a real word now.
Growthier. But in all seriousness, this is a deal that free trade, fair trade, growth, prosperity for both sides, market openings, better labor value, intellectual property protection.
But wait a second, David Stockman, Reagan's budget guy,
My former boss.
Yeah, your former boss said this today. Let's watch.
I think it's a great big PR stunt. This isn't MAGA, okay? This isn't going to do a lot for the American economy or workers. In fact, NAFTA was never a problem. The whole thing is like a phony issue.
Well, look, Dave's an old friend of mine. He and I disagree on a whole bunch of things the last 30 or so years. By the by, this is going to help workers, all right? There's good domestic content. There's good North American content laws, which are enforceable, going to give labor better value. There's some wage push going on in here. That's all very important. If you're not in the U.S.-Mexican zone or maybe the North American zone, like China, you're going to have a lot of trouble doing business, particularly in autos and auto parts. So I think this really helps the growth story.
But doesn't he represent kind of the old Republican Party where if you push back on any of these big trade deals, and you and I have been talking about this on the radio and TV for literally 20 years now, It's the old guard still speaking out. And Stockman was the pro-growth guy. The idea that this is not going to be good for the American worker when 75% of the parts in any automobile coming into the United States has to be made either in the United States or Mexico instead of coming through China, which these auto parts have been coming through, siphoning through Mexico, coming into the United States, tariff-free, Larry. And David Stockman's out there with Cavuto today saying, oh, there's no big deal. Come on. What's happened to these people?
Crankiness. He needs crankiness. That's all I can say.
Making me cranky. Hearing him be cranky.
No, you're not cranky. We're part of the optimistic view. As I say, this is a growth component. I don't care what my pal Dave Stockman said or my former pal Dave Stockman said. Look, wait. No digital barriers, okay? Biological barriers, intellectual property rights barriers. This is going to give us a leg up on entrepreneurship and inventiveness, which is really the heart of the
candidate's coming into town tomorrow, the Canadian economic minister, and she's going to be Freeland. I think she's going to be here. She likes giving speeches. It seems to me that Trudeau has previously enjoyed triangulating against Trump because for him it's good domestic politics, he thinks. But what they did, is this not true? They pushed it to the mat with Canada. I don't think Canada thought he was going to get a deal with Mexico. Suddenly, they're odd man out. Will they ultimately come to the table and agree to this deal?
Well, they're coming to town, and there will be a table. I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be.
Why is she flying into town to make another speech? She's good at making speeches.
Yeah, I don't want to get into personal stuff. Look, President spoke to Trudeau today. POTUS would like to get a good deal. Okay, a good deal. But he told the Prime Minister, and he said to us, if we can't get a good deal, then he may well resort to automobile taxes or tariffs, foreign import taxes. The Canadians do not want that.
But they were ridiculing the president today, saying, well, these are American cars. It's Ford, et cetera, made in Canada coming in. But they were all ridiculing the president today, saying, well, the Canadians don't make cars. They're American cars made in Canada. But it doesn't matter. That's the same deal with Mexico. They're American cars, but when they have all these component parts that are made in China, it's not good. It's not a good deal for us. They're just ridiculing. They don't even know the trade deal. They're ridiculing him today.
By the way, I doubt if they read the trade paragraphs in the Mexican deal. But just putting that aside, as the president has said, he'd like to have a good deal. But if not, he's willing to go on the car tax if he has to do it. OK, that's his negotiating form. And look, you have to be tough. You have to be strong. Trudeau disappointed us a lot, stabbing us in the back way last spring and the G7 meeting. I hope he doesn't pull any of that stuff again. Let's just go back to Mexico because I'm proud of that. There's so many market openings here. As I said, financial services, intellectual property rights, entrepreneurship. It's going to help the farmers. This is great stuff, not tariffs. Market openings on both sides.
It's a more efficient market. It's a more efficient marketplace.
Absolutely.
Everyone has said Trump's anti-trade. It's all a lie. It was a lie from the beginning. Larry,
Trump's free trader. You know that. He wants to get to the free trade, no tariffs, no non-tariff barriers, no subsidies. That's his goal, but you have to be tough to get to that.
Larry, before we let you go, John McCain, big controversy. White House lowered the flag, then raised it, lowered. What's up with that? What the heck happened with the flag? And everyone's focused on the flag and McCain and, was a great hero to this country and patriot.
I think that at the end of the day, the press release put out President's statements was the right thing. That's what my view is. I've known McCain a long time. You have too. Look, we all have our eccentricities.
No, we don't, Larry. We're perfect. We don't have any eccentricities.
Yeah, you and I have to sit here and reform the Catholic Church.
Oh, no. Well, that's another segment with Raymond Arroyo coming up. Hold that thought.
Segment. Here we are.
All right, Larry, thanks for coming in, man.
Trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, we're converts, and we act like we own the place.
Why are they doing this to us?
No. It makes it hard. Hey, thanks for staying up for us tonight. We really appreciate it. Great to see you.
Appreciate it.
And why the hard left's dream of impeaching President Trump may be the ultimate gift for Republicans in the midterms. What do I mean about that? Coming up.